Now it's time for us to turn to Out to Launch tonight. Chris, what has been going on out there? Are we?
What hasn't been going on?
Yeah,
This has been an exciting time. Yeah, I've still got some PTSD from putting these stories together. Events have been occurring literally this week. And in the last day, literally, things have happened. So all kinds of stuff is going on. Let's have a whip around quick tour. First of all, the Russians delivered a new module, laboratory module, to the International Space Station. It did, after some difficulties in Earth orbit with its propulsion system, it did manage to sail up to the ISS and dock. However, then we had a little bit of excitement with the Nauka module, as it is known. After being docked and latched to the station, it began firing, without having been asked to do so, its steering rockets. And with its steering rockets firing, of course, that's going to push the whole space station around. Initially, they reported it might have been 45 degrees the station was moved, but that's been appended. We now know it was 540 degrees, a complete 360-degree turn, and then proceeding to end up on its back, upside down. Now, of course, there's they're in weightless conditions up there, and the astronauts were never in any danger. The rotation was not fast enough for the crew to even feel it. But of course, for the sake of the communications antennae and the solar power panels and everything else, they had to get the station back into position. With this Nauka misbehaving, fortunately, we had the Progress 78 Russian cargo ship, automated cargo ship. It had thrusters too, and it automatically fired its to slow the movement down, eventually correct and stop it. And then they got the station back to its proper orientation. For now, we don't know exactly what caused the difficulty, but the thrusters on the Nauka have been shut down, and apparently the station is fine. But that's the kind of week it's been, with plenty of excitement in the Out to Launch segment. And speaking of that, you will remember we talked about the Boeing Starliner. The Boeing Starliner, the alternative or other compared to the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft to carry human beings into orbit from the United States. Now, Boeing had that other flight, you may remember, 18 odd months ago, where it wasn't able to reach the space station. They were able to get the vehicle back, but there were all kinds of software problems. NASA had a list of 80 corrections that had to be made to the vehicle, and they managed to get a new launch attempt, a new spacecraft, everything ready, and it was supposed to launch actually about the time that the Russian module arrived. Well, they postponed for one day, and then we're going to give Starliner its try, but during the countdown, they found indications of propulsion valves in the wrong positions. They weren't sure if it was the instruments or the valves were really in the wrong positions, but they troubleshooted the problem for a while, and they just weren't able to resolve it. So, just as of the last day or two, the Starliner and its rocket have been rolled back to the hangar. They're going to have to disassemble things, get in there, and see if they can find out what's going on. Now, does that mean that NASA feels that they bought a lemon? That's silly, but you got to understand, vehicles as complex as these, they do have teething troubles and problems. SpaceX had one of their prototypes blow up on the ground, nobody in it, of course. The Apollo spacecraft had a fire that actually did kill 3 astronauts before it got to fly. Now, complex technical programs like this do have difficulties. I hope that the Starliner's teething problems are resolved soon. It'd be wonderful to have it in flight. But the main thing is for all of you, I'll get back to you on Starliner. We'll see when it may fly again. There's other news over in the SpaceX world. SpaceX got some good news. The Europa Clipper mission to investigate the ice-covered moon Europa around Jupiter, possibly with another water ocean under that ice. We think so. Europa Clipper was for many years tied to the SLS, Space Launch System, that NASA was developing. It's a very expensive, very capable rocket. It's expensive, though. It had been behind in its schedule for a number of years, and NASA had asked if maybe they could use one of the commercial launch vehicles to launch it. But just now, in the last budget approved by Congress for 2021, they allowed NASA to choose if they wanted to use another vehicle, and they have chosen the 3-booster version of the Falcon rocket known as Falcon Heavy. The launch will occur in 2024, and the arrival at Jupiter and Europa will occur in 2031. So that's upcoming. Now, as far as SpaceX, those guys drive me crazy, absolutely crazy. I can't keep up with them. The site down in South Texas, where they are building that gigantic rocket, 2-part rocket, we've seen tests of the upper stage, the Starship, which eventually they're hoping someday will carry people. But we haven't seen tests of the big rocket that goes underneath it, the booster. Here you see one of the first boosters. They rolled out a test article first to just see if everything fit. They did a test firing of a couple of engines, but now they have finished the first one they mean to fly to orbit. They have put it out on the launch pad, and oh boy, is this thing, the booster by itself is 230 feet tall. And just in the last day, they have rolled out the spaceship part, the Starship, the upper stage. They put it on top of the other stage, a full stack for the first time, and that stack broke every record for the largest rocket ever assembled in the world, taller than the Saturn V. And you want to talk about power, you look at the business end of this thing. This is a picture of the bottom of the booster as they're finishing it up. In fact, let me show you a different angle on it. The picture on the left is a real picture. There are 29 engines, and they're not small engines. These are some of the most capable rocket engines ever made. And there's 29 of these beasts. It's
and
just
Chris,
incredible.
Chris, those engines burn methane.
And, you know, you're absolutely right, Patrick. I didn't think that this was another methane story. And that's important, actually, because of where they want to go. They can manufacture methane on Mars. And so they chose liquid oxygen and methane as a combination because of where they're going. They think they can fill her up on Mars. So it's actually very important that it use that fuel. Other vehicles that go to the moon, for example, they would use hydrogen and oxygen because they think they can get hydrogen and oxygen from deposits on the moon. But yes, you're exactly right. It's another methane story and a happy one. And here's one happy thing. I just want to let you know this happened because we're all looking forward to the fall with the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. When it does go into space, perhaps in November now, it'll be riding on an Ariane 5 rocket. This is not that launch. It hasn't happened yet. This is the Ariane 5 just recently launching 2 communication satellites. The important thing about this and how it ties to the James Webb Telescope is that there'd been a problem. They needed to do some redesign work on the clamshell nose cone that separates to get out of the way so satellites can deploy in space. They redesigned it. This flight that you see right here was the test, and the test worked fine, which clears the Ariane 5 for what is arguably the most important payload it will ever carry in the fall. So that is the world of out to launch. I hope next month less is going on.
Yeah, well, I doubt that. By then they'll have launched one of the starships. They'll explode. Something will happen. I'm interested that Boeing Starliner. One thing to keep in mind. Indeed, it's complicated. There's a lot of parts going on. SpaceX tended to have the philosophy of, well, if it blows up, we'll build another one. Boeing is operating a little bit more under the lines of, we don't want it to go wrong. But their last test flight, like we reported on, wasn't perfect. And test flights aren't always perfect. This one, I think they want to have go a little bit better. So I don't blame them for pulling it back in. This is why we test. You know, things do go wrong, and you know they'll get to the bottom of it. This is all part of it.